Hi all, and thank you for joining our Women in Tech webinar today. My name is Leanne, and I'm a Senior Account Manager at Just IT. At Just IT, we are passionate about helping more women get into technology positions across the UK and ensure every woman understands the tech opportunities available to them. We hope today will inspire you all to explore the wonderful world of tech, as currently statistics show only 5% of leadership positions in the technology sector are held by women. We want to help change this by giving as much knowledge and sending a message out there for more women to start their career in the tech world. Alongside me today, I have my colleague Nina, who will be speaking to some of our panelists on the call, and Leah, who will be on hand to add useful links into the chat box and answer any of your questions. So if you have any questions throughout the session, for us or for the panelists, please do pop them into the chat box. Today's webinar will be for women of all ages looking to explore or hear more about tech careers. You will hear from some amazing panelists within software, marketing and data. These women have broken the bias and started and carving out a great career within the tech world. We'll be speaking to two women from each sector, and we will start the conversation by speaking to someone who is earlier in their tech career, that's either doing an apprenticeship or recently completed, and progressing on to the people who have been in the industry a little bit longer and developing a solid career for themselves. Firstly, we'll be exploring software, and we'll be speaking to Ilva, who's a current software apprentice through Just IT, and Lydia, who's got a solid experience within development. So over to you, Nina.
Thanks, Leanne. Good afternoon all, and thanks once again for joining us today. So we're going to start the conversation by speaking with Ilva, who's a software apprentice at AST. So hi, Ilva. So Ilva, can we start off the conversation by just touching on, so understand before getting into software, you come from a retail background. Could you give us an insight as to what made you want to explore and transition into a software development role?
Yeah, of course. So I'd been a team manager for a few years, and I'd say that in my previous position, I had already reached sort of, I wouldn't have been able to progress any more than I had already done at the time. And I used to do coding a bit before when I was in college in Iceland, and I always sort of wondered if I should have pursued it. But at the time, and this is about 10, 15 years ago now, all the people that were studying anything related to coding, they were just boys. So it just I never really considered it as I should have done, because it didn't really feel like it was a thing that, you know, girls wanted to do. But during COVID, I started to sort of look into what I wanted to do instead. And I wanted to go into an industry that is a lot more career focused, and I thought tech would be great for that. And I started learning just coding on a Udemy, and then I did a boot camp, and then I became an apprentice with you guys. So that's sort of how it happened, and yeah, really happy with that decision.
Brilliant, and thank you so much for sharing that. So just off that, Ilva, can you tell us a bit more about some of the duties you carry out within the software developer role? That would be great if you can just give us an insight to that.
Yeah, so my day-to-day job sort of thing is we start our day with the daily Wordle, and then we move on to more serious stuff. We have a daily stand-up at 10 in the morning every day, and it just allows us to sort of go over the progress that we made the day before. We can take a look into sort of what we want to do during that day, if there's anything blocking us, and it just allows the department to sort of be up to date on what everyone's doing, if we need to collaborate a bit more, if we need any help, anything like that. We do code reviews and merge requests. So we're constantly working with senior developers within our team. And yeah, that's sort of what we do. So the projects that I'm personally doing is within React. It's not an app building thing that I'm doing at the moment. I might do it in the future, but I'm doing a sort of front end React based project, but then I'll be learning the back end as well. So you go into SQL, you go into database, but at the moment I'm sort of focusing on front end.
Brilliant, amazing, and thanks for sharing. So Ylva, you're nearly a year into your apprenticeship. What are the next steps for you? Have you thought about what sort of role you want to get into once you have completed your apprenticeship?
So when I complete my apprenticeship, I'm really hoping to stay as a software developer at AST. I think the department that we've got here is absolutely amazing. The amount of support that I get is just really, really good. So I'm hoping to stay here. Ideally, I would want to focus more on the front end, just because I've got such a creative background, so it makes more sense for me to do front end. But yeah, so I'm not planning on moving at all. I think, yeah, I'd love to stay here.
Amazing, great. So I'm just going to go over to Leanne. Do we have any questions for Ylva in the chat box that Ylva can just cover and answer? Is there any?
Yeah, I have got a question from Lily. So she's asked, I think you covered it a little bit, but what sort of projects do you do in a software apprenticeship? Is it like building apps?
Yeah, so you can do building apps. I think it will depend on what company you go into. For me personally, I've been doing more of the React front end projects. We're actually doing a solution for sort of tracking health of a vessel out on sea, and like people movement going from inland out to wind farms, and it's not anything that I would have ever imagined myself working on. And I think that's what's so exciting about being a software apprentice and just a software developer is you get insight into industries that you never would have thought that you would have access to. So
amazing. I would imagine the vessel bit is very interesting with what's gone on recently.
Yes.
Another question that's coming is, how did you find your apprenticeship?
I actually came across you guys on LinkedIn and applied through there. I believe I may have sent my CV through to you, Leanne, and then things just took off from there. And
it was. It's been great watching your journey.
Thank you.
So that's it for now. So thank you so much, Ylva. It's been really lovely to hear from you. So we're going to move over to Lydia now. So Lydia is a DevOps engineer at Gemini. Lydia, you actually completed an apprenticeship in cloud engineering. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how it's helped develop you in your career in tech?
Yeah, so it was a bit of a U-turn actually for me to actually get into engineering and anything kind of to do with computers, which I wouldn't have seen myself anywhere at this kind of space right now. As I actually, through college and A-levels, I did a whole science and was going to go down the sports science route. So yeah, I had a U-turn there, and I actually started an apprenticeship as a trainee accountant, as my A-levels let me get to that part, and I was doing that, and I actually didn't find it very fun in that aspect, and I couldn't really see a career progression through that bit, and I wanted to do something a little bit more where I could feel some real benefit of doing the work. So I looked at my options and thought, what's out there. Luckily, the company I was with I was in the accounting part with, they also had an engineering architecture side to it as well. So having those links actually is really beneficial. So your network is huge, so helpful. And I was just talking to one of my colleagues and I was saying I'm not really sure where I want to go. So I attended kind of lots of webinars like this actually to see is engineering something which I want to do. Spoke to people about like their day-to-days, how they work, if they enjoy it, obviously. And usually I found most people who are in kind of the engineering cloud computing industry, they'd been there for 20 odd plus years, and I thought, well, you wouldn't stay somewhere if you didn't like it. So after getting kind of like knowledge up about it, I thought, well, maybe this is something I could go into, and then took up an apprenticeship with them. And it was actually really good because it wasn't just kind of set on the engineering side, because my kind of first image of like engineering in general was I'd be sitting kind of in my room by myself, coding on a laptop and not really speaking to anyone. And I think that's quite a perception that is kind of given over.
It certainly is.
So it was nice to see kind of the consulting side with it. And I had that bit of interacting with people. It's the same as like in my day-to-day job now. I'm always talking with people. We're working through things together. And that's like the environment I like. And compared to like accounting, it was really kind of do the books by yourself, go through the spreadsheets by yourself, which personally for me, I prefer a much more team working side of things, which is what I get from what I'm doing now.
Amazing. And I know through my work, speaking to people about the software engineer, in particular females, they always go, isn't it just where you sit in a room on your own with a hoodie on and tap on like numbers? So it has definitely got that concept, preconception, but it is very vastly different. And then also you did mention there, Lydia, about the network, and you were asking people.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking later on in this about the importance of networking. And we will be giving some links to some networks for women to join, and they're purely focused on women in tech, because I think again that's really important to have a really strong network around you.
Yeah, definitely.
Amazing. So since then, so starting from accounts and then moving on to your cloud apprenticeship, you've then moved on to the platform engineer at Capgemini. Can you give us a little bit of an insight into what your role entails?
Yeah, so we have lots of different projects going on, but you're usually assigned to just one project. So at the moment, I'm working on the Home Office, which is a huge account. And my day-to-day job is keeping that infrastructure up to date, and also creating that infrastructure, which at times can be really complex and you think, what is going on? But again, it comes down to kind of that team around you, which I've always found I've had support. And with our work we do, we have, like we said before, the daily stand-up. So you say, you know, what you've done today, what you're going to be progressing with. And we also have like a technical stand-up. So it's more of a drop-in call. And say you're struggling with how to get A and B working together, we join a technical stand-up and we all look through it together, and everyone puts their ideas in and say, let's try this bit out, or this bit is actually broken, let's try and correct it. So it's a very like collaboration kind of atmosphere, which is really good for me. I like that, and it shows kind of the continued support you get. You're not that person just sitting by yourself in your room sort of thing. We also have like the collaboration days as well. So obviously it's in the name, we go into the office together, and actually it's not all remote working, which there's pros and cons to it. But I think when we have those days in the office and are actually working through something, sometimes just on a whiteboard together, you really kind of get that team like vibe, and it's nice to see actually the bigger picture. But other than that, you do sometimes have meetings, and some of them can be okay, I don't think we needed that, but other times it's good when you get lots of things delivered. You're speaking to people across the whole project, not just within your immediate team. So again, like your network is expanding so quickly. other than project work, I also get involved with like internal Capgemini projects as well. So we have like things going on at the moment where we'll have like new graduate intake. So it's like their learning paths and helping them to come into the business and supporting them through their journey as well, which is really good.
Oh, that's great.
You know, give back to, you know,
Yeah, that's good. It's a good give back piece, isn't it?
Yeah.
And again, based on what we said about that stereotypical, someone sat in a room, something that both you and Ilva has said is about how it's very supportive, it's working as a team, it's very inclusive. So it's great that hopefully we can start changing mindsets of people based on what they think they should be as an engineer. And then if you, obviously, again, you've gone through the apprenticeship program, you've then progressed into a different area and are carving out a great career for yourself. What advice would you give to someone looking to start a career in tech or maybe upskilling their current skill set? What would it be?
I'd say I think everyone's easy to fall into their comfort zone, and I really was. And it was quite a big step to move into kind of the tech area, because you think, oh, I'm not the person that should be there, or I'm not good enough for that area. I don't have the knowledge which someone else would. And especially if you're not from a tech background as well, that can be kind of that thought process that goes into your mind. So I'd just say kind of put yourself out your comfort zone. If you think you like it and want to give it a go, give it a go. There's, you know, what's the worst that can happen, really? And that would be my one bit of advice.
Well, that is a great piece of advice, and it's something that links in very nicely with one of the panelists we're going to speak to shortly, who did exactly that, who put themselves out of their comfort zone. And we're going to talk about the stats around that as well. So we'll touch more on that. So that's a great piece of advice. Thank you, Lydia. Nina, do we have any questions for Lydia?
Yeah, and it's just upon the support piece. So did you receive any good support when doing your apprenticeship?
Yeah, I'd say through the whole apprenticeship, really, because it pathed out my career for me, and I don't think I'd be in like a consulting firm if I didn't have that support and building up my knowledge. And even like people kind of take time out their day and said, let me just show you this bit. And they don't, you know, they don't have to do that, but they was helping me to, you know, guide me on my way and give me that extra knowledge to progress myself. So yeah, I think all round, I think it's actually a really supportive environment, and no one's I've never gone up to someone and say, look, could you just help me on this aspect? And they've gone, no. And I think sometimes that's what we're all afraid of, someone saying, no, I'm not gonna, you know, support you in that. So yeah, I think it's a really supportive environment.
Brilliant, thanks. Another question has come in. Would you consider an apprenticeship for someone who's just achieved only their GCSEs? Yeah,
definitely. I think if you're not sure, because like me, I didn't know if I wanted to go to uni. I didn't know if I didn't really know what I wanted to do, actually. If you can get into an apprenticeship and actually start learning straight away, building up your knowledge, it lets you know quicker if that's something you want to do. Whereas if you take kind of a step back and you're like, I don't know if I should go into this apprenticeship, then you're not going to know if that's the kind of role that you want to go into and progress in. So I'd say even after GCSEs, it would be a good step to go in.
Yeah, and I think both on what Ilva and Lydia said today, they're both started in different areas completely. And sometimes I think you've got to have work experience and get some general work behind you to go, well, this is the aspect I like. This is what I like doing. And these are the skills I've got, which I can transition and transfer over into this role. So I think it's very much about identifying what you want to do or what you like doing firstly, and then building from that. Because I think most people start their career in one area and then will transfer into something completely different. So it's about establishing what it is you want to do, what skills you've naturally got to then transfer into them roles.
Brilliant. So yeah, back over to you, Leanne.
Okay, amazing. So thank you so much, Ilva and Lydia. That was great to hear about your journey so far. So we're now going to look at the digital marketing sector within tech. We'll be speaking to Jasmine and Bethan. So I'm going to hand over to you, Nina.
Thank you. So let's start with Jasmine. So Jasmine, hiya. So you're currently working at Wildcat Digital and have completed your digital marketing level 3 apprenticeship, and you're now working towards your level 4 marketing executive apprenticeship. Can you start off by just giving us an overview about Wildcat Digital and also some of the skills you have learned during your apprenticeship?
Yeah, of course. So Wildcat Digital is primarily an SEO and PPC digital agency. So we work with a lot of small businesses across a range of industries. So anything from homeware to biotech to shutters and blinds, that sort of thing. But we're quite a small team, so we're still growing as an agency, which is a really exciting time. So in terms of skills that I've learned during my apprenticeship, both level 3 and level 4, obviously I can sort of go through all the digital marketing skills. So we've obviously touched on SEO, digital marketing, like social media, that type of thing. But for me, coming straight from a school background, so I just done my GCSEs when I started my level 3, the confidence and learning that sort of skill was really important. The networking side of things. So my first role, it was quite business development focused. So I was traveling a lot. I was going to visit different clients in London, Manchester, that type of thing. And just generally getting to network with those professionals really helped develop my people skills, which I didn't really have at 16. And alongside that, obviously working with industry professionals, you pick up on a lot of like time management skills, a lot of organizational skills, as well as obviously digital marketing skills.
Brilliant, amazing. So it's really good to hear some of the skills that you've picked up during your time on your apprenticeship. So your senior CEO is account executive, and for those on the call who have no idea what that means, could you just highlight what that means and some of the duties you do in your day-to-day role as well? That would be great.
Yeah, of course. So a senior SEO account executive is a bit of a mouthful, but it basically means I manage multiple client accounts in terms of the communication. We outline the strategy for SEO, and we implement that as well. So day to day, that might look like writing some blogs, doing some PR outreach, having some client strategy calls. As a senior SEO account executive as well, so I'll mentor junior team members, I'll do some training sessions, and generally sort of collaborate with the wider team. So it's a little bit of everything, but it's a really good role to sort of, if you're quite creative, but you also want to get involved with the project management side of things as well.
Brilliant. And for those on the call, Jasmine, some may want to, follow your footsteps in doing potentially a digital marketing role or apprenticeship. Is there any recommendation in terms of marketing tools that you could advise, as well as websites that some people can go off and research?
Yeah, of course. So one thing for me when I was doing my apprenticeship that I found really helpful was SEMrush. So it's a paid tool anyway, and if you're an SEO, you might use it for sort of keyword research, backlink audits, competitor research, but they also have an academy, so they've got loads of free courses on there. They're primarily sort of content and analytics focused, but they're all free if you've got the tool, and they're really helpful because they're industry experts. They're videos, so I've learned quite visually, which is really helpful. But you can get like actual qualifications out of them, which is really good, and they're really good for just completing in your free time. Another one that I find really helpful is HubSpot. So they also have an academy, and they cover sort of a wider range of digital marketing. So they talk about PPC, paid ads, social media, SEO again, and also general strategy, which is really helpful. And then sort of my top tip, I guess, for someone new in the role or new in the industry is to attend some digital marketing conferences. So I'm guessing you guys are more like UK based, but for anyone in Yorkshire, Sheffield area, there's a conference called Sheffield DM, so Sheffield Digital Marketing, and they do a monthly conference with a number of different speakers, but there's also like the opportunity to network with professionals as well. And that's how I've ended up with a couple of my roles, just through sort of knowing different people and having a chat and putting yourselves in those situations with other like-minded people.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for sharing those recommendations, Jasmine. And for those who've missed it, if you can just maybe pop some in the chat, that would be great. So I'm going to go back over to Leanne. Is there any questions within the chat box? Got any questions that Jasmine can potentially answer?
Amazing. We've got a lot of questions coming in. One of them, I think, Jasmine, and again, if anybody else wants to jump in on this, we've been asked by Joy T, what is the career progression after completing an apprenticeship?
So in digital marketing, it can literally be into anything. So I started off as a junior account manager in my first agency, and then I went into a more general digital marketing role. So I was a digital marketing executive for a while. But in this company, I've progressed from digital marketing executive to account manager, and I've recently been promoted to team leader. Nice. So it's really is wherever you want to take it. And the great thing about a marketing apprenticeship is it gives you a bit of a base for everything. So not only have I focused on SEO, but I've also got quite a bit of experience with PPC, PR, social media. And because of that, you can kind of really take it anywhere, which is really exciting.
Amazing. So you think there's no limits really for your progression after an apprenticeship?
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
amazing.
It's sort of, you got to consider as well with digital marketing, you can either work for an agency or you can go in-house at a company, and that really depends as well on what you're most passionate about. So if you really like to get stuck into one subject and work maybe within a smaller team, then in-house is fabulous for that. But personally for me, at the start of my career, working agency side was fantastic. You know, you get exposure to so many different client accounts. You've got different teams working in those different aspects, so that allows you to kind of move around as well.
Amazing. And we've been asked, you mentioned the networking groups you attended. Mm-hmm. You may not be able to do it now, but if you could just, someone's asked about how do you get in touch with them. I don't know if you've got any links you can pop in or send it to us later and then we'll send them out.
Yeah, I can definitely send across some links.
Amazing. Great. Thank you so much. So that's just about covered them. So we're now going to talk to Bethan. Bethan was introduced to myself through somebody who I've worked closely with on Women in Tech. Bethan at the time was a mentee on the Kijego Women Network group. And when we talked, Bethan was career switching, so she was looking to completely change what she was doing and go into another industry in another sector. So we started talking, so I could offer support to her around pitching CV, interviewing. And I always remember when I first met Bethan and I said to her, what are you looking for? She came up with a list as long as my arm of the criteria she wanted. And I remember thinking, wow, you're really, really ambitious. I think you're over ambitious. But I stopped saying that, and I didn't want to discourage her in any way. And we've touched on it earlier, and we touched upon it yesterday, because one of the stats that I think we can influence and we can encourage women to do is that if a man sees a job that he wants to apply for, he will look at the duties and the requirements on the job spec. And as long as he meets 52% of the duties and requirements on that job spec, he will apply. So that means on average, men could have only half of the experience and requirements needed, but will still put themselves out there and apply. Women will look at a job description, and only if they've got 93% of the experience of the duties will they apply for a role. So from that, so basically they've got to do everything on the job description. And from doing that, we do restrict ourselves. And I think one of the main pieces of advice that comes across, and it's being said today, is about putting yourself out there. So Bethan, I wanted to use you as an example in that, because I think you were a prime example of going, do you know what? I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to try and see where I get. So based on that, if you could just give us a background of yourself, but also how the network, Jago Women Network Group, has helped you.
Yes, so I've got 10 years of experience of working in marketing and comms roles across theatre and publishing and now tech. I would say that storytelling is my superpower. That's at the heart of what I really love doing. And in 2022, I decided during the pandemic that I wanted to career switch into the dynamic tech sector, wanted to work for more innovative startup and move from publishing. So I realized that, I had these transferable skills, but it's still a challenge to make that switch. So I was very lucky to get a place on the free Kajigo mentoring scheme. So Kajigo is a network that supports girls and women into bright tech careers. So that's, if you want to Google it, Kajigo. And they're a fantastic initiative, 16-week free mentoring scheme. And I was paired with someone called Mark Simpson from EPAM as my mentor. So it's really important to have, male allies as well. And that was a real confidence boost for me. And he taught me how to maximize my transferable skills from publishing and leverage them to really tell a story about why I wanted to be in tech and how I could add value to that and what I could bring. Everything from polishing my CV to also my cover letter as well. And what was really fantastic is it's not just the mentoring support I got from Kajigo. The founder, Rav Bumbra, is an amazing, inspiring woman. She offered lots of advice and support. And you also have this network of 100 women who are mentors and mentees who are basically all your cheerleaders, supporting you, cheering you on, offering support and advice, being role models, helping you overcome, imposter syndrome as well, and giving you practical support. So it's been really fantastic. And I should say before I forget, it will reopen soon, the Kajigo mentoring scheme for 2023 applications. It really transformed my career and helped me make that switch into tech. So it's really great to find your tribe, I think, and have that support.
Amazing. And I think it was mentioned earlier from Lydia about networking. And Jasmine's mentioned it, and I think it's really, really important to find networks. And I think LinkedIn is one of the best ways to find different networks. And particularly if you put in women in tech, it will come up with lots of different networks. So definitely try and explore LinkedIn about that, because exactly what Jasmine, Lydia, Bethan have said today, the more support, the more cheerleaders, the more advice, the more mentors you've got around you, it will ensure that you're able to make right decisions and adapt yourself to be able to put yourself out there and have that belief that just try for the job and see what happens. So definitely try searching Women in Tech on LinkedIn, and there's lots of great network groups on there. So Bethan, just going back to your career today, what was it about marketing that made you want to get into that as a career?
So I've always been someone who loves storytelling. I enjoy writing. I'm creative. Also, if there's something that I love and I'm enthusiastic about, I really enjoy sharing that with other people, bringing them along with me on the journey. I love coming up with new ideas, and I'm really interested in innovations in the digital world. So in that respect, career in marketing and digital marketing felt like something quite natural to me. I would say that for me, having grown up in a village in rural Wales and gone to local comprehensive school, I didn't necessarily have a huge amount of career advice and inspiration, but through university, or for others they might find it's through apprenticeships, I ended up then getting some work experience doing marketing for an art gallery. That's when I realized it's something that I really loved, and through there I ended up going into theatre and publishing, and now this year tech marketing as well. So I just love spreading the word, telling a story, and also marketing is a lot about helping to solve problems. Actually, so much of it is identifying people's pain points and their problems and offering a solution as well. Absolutely. So I think there's that element to it too.
Amazing, thank you so much. And then so you recently career switched and went to Pelago. to do something completely, well, not completely different. There was a lot of transfers of, but was fairly different in a different industry. Tell us a little bit about your role and your day-to-day duties at Pelago.
Yes, so I'm the B2B, which is business to business digital marketing manager at Pelago. And that is an affordable and accessible edtech platform that's basically Spotify for textbooks or Netflix for books, which aims to make learning accessible for all. So my role involves delivering and building on the B2B digital marketing strategy there. There's 2 of us in the B2B marketing team and about 10 of us in the wider marketing team. So a day in my life is really varied. Wonderful group of people I work with, and the variety is one of the things I love the most. It might be sending a HubSpot email campaign, working on a case study, doing social media content, analysing metrics, working on conference marketing. It's hugely varied, and I'm part of what's called Tribe University. The organisation is structured in tribes, so we all work with like different customer groups. So my focus is on working with universities and higher education institutions, and it really is a fantastic place to work. It's a very innovative, agile tech startup which has a real mission and purpose, and there's brilliant people there. And you know, I really encourage everybody on this call that there's a talent pool on Pelago's website. You can send in a speculative CV. It's as this is a Women in Tech webinar, it's worth pointing out it's 45% women at Pelago. It's a very inclusive place to work, so absolutely check that out, see
Right.
what's open there as well.
Thanks for that. That's great. Thank you, Bethan. So great. I'm sure you will all agree. It was great to hear from both Bethan and Jasmine. Some really great insights then, some great advice. Any questions for them, Nina?
Yeah, so Bethan, who do you work alongside in your digital marketing team?
Yeah, so there's 2 of us, myself and my manager Natalie, who do the B2B marketing side, but within the marketing team more widely at Pelago, there's 2 people who work on SEO and content marketing. There's brand marketing, performance and growth marketing. So it's a real mix of different roles. So there's people who might look after more like brand and design. There might be people who do more of the there's also D2C, so that's direct to consumer as well, and a lot of that might involve you know, Google Analytics as well, and different kinds of performance marketing there. So it's a real mix of us within the marketing team covering lots of different areas. So within my own speciality, it's mainly that business to business element. Yeah.
Brilliant. And would you start as a digital marketing assistant and then work your way up?
So great question. So for somebody who's like completely new in their career, I would say there is absolutely a good route by going in at assistant level and working your way up either in-house or in agency. If you're a career switcher, I would say, and you're getting into tech, I would say if you're whatever level you're currently at in your existing industry, don't necessarily think, oh gosh, you know, I've come from publishing and I want to work in tech. I have to start from an assistant and work my way up, move across. You've got amazing skills with you. And one of the things my mentor sort of taught me was that actually, though, that different background and those new perspectives that you bring are really, really valuable. You're not necessarily coming in with preconceived ideas of how things should be done. But I would say absolutely, if you're like maybe starting out new, consider moving into an assistant or apprentice role and working your way up. There's lots of room for growth and progression within marketing, for definite.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much, Bethan. That was great. So last but not least, we're now going to look into the wonderful world of data. So we've got Tenny and Daisy here to give us their insight into data, what it's about and how they have developed their career. So Nina, I'm going to hand over to you to speak to Daisy.
Thanks, Leanne. So let's meet Daisy. Daisy has recently been awarded a distinction in her data technician apprenticeship and has also been promoted to a data scientist at the Inform team. So a huge congratulations to you, Daisy. So Daisy, could you just give us a brief overview and just explain what a data scientist is for everyone on the call, sorry.
Yeah, of course. So a data scientist is somebody that can work within any team really in an organisation and translate data into something that is useful and will help with business decisions. So I suppose that's a little bit broad, but it's hard to narrow it down. It can be anything. So a really good example of what we do at Inform is a lot of our business processes, one of the outputs will be data, and actually what we can do with that is use that to shape further business decisions, and that might be it might give us an insight on how effective a process is and what changes to make and that kind of thing.
Brilliant. And could you just highlight some of the skills that you gained during your apprenticeship and what support you received as well?
Yeah, sure. So the apprenticeship is really aimed at people with, little to no experience and knowledge. And I was definitely in that bucket before I started. I could probably explain on a very high level what a data analyst did and what data science was, but I couldn't really apply it, and the apprenticeship helped me bridge that gap. And I would sort of split it into three main areas. So the first one is the kind of obvious, the hard skills. So a lot of our workshops were aimed around data visualization tools, so Power BI or Tableau, and also programming languages, so Python and R, and how specifically to apply those to data analyst jobs, I suppose. But alongside that, we also learned the key concepts, so things that you would need to understand to do your job effectively, and that is the standard things like different data and database types, the different methods, so regressions and time series analytics and statistical testings and how to apply those all. And then thirdly, I think the most important thing we learn is the soft skills that come along with the role as well. So being able to gather requirements appropriately and how to manage stakeholder expectations and just that whole communications aspect of it as well. So we learned a lot, I'd say, and actually the support from Just IT was brilliant. I managed to ask lots of questions to lots of different people, which I think is a really good sign that it's a positive learning environment.
Brilliant. Daisy, I know when you hear some people hear the word data, they can think it's Excel sheets, just working with numbers, and it can be portrayed as being boring. But I think once you explore the tech industry, you begin to realize that there's so much more that that can be covered within the data world. What has been your favorite part working in your role?
Yeah, I definitely get what you mean. Often people ask me what I do, and as soon as I say the word data, it's either confusion or a bit feeling sad for you, like it's boring, but it really isn't. I think it's really interesting, and I would say my favorite part of the role is being able to, translate and aggregate, summarize something that to a standard user is just thousands of rows of potentially meaningless data into something that's useful and actionable. There's so much data out there, there's a huge wealth of it, and it's not always fully leveraged or utilized. So to be able to help with real business decisions by providing that data input is just really powerful. There's a phrase that's thrown around a lot, and that is that data is the new oil. And as cheesy as it is, I really think it's true. There's so much value to it, and being able to be a part of that is really exciting.
Brilliant, amazing. Thank you so much, Daisy. And once again, huge congratulations for all your achievements and the amazing work you're doing at the Inform team. So Leanne, how are we doing in the chat box? Is there any questions for Daisy before we hand over to yourself and Tenny?
I can't see anything new at the moment. What I did want to say as well is that, and I think we talked earlier about stereotypical roles. So we talked about, software, that young teenage boy with his hoodie sitting at a computer. When myself and Leah from the Women in Tech team attended a seminar this year where it was looking at how we break into the schools to make sure that, we are informing females and males of how to get a career in the different subjects in tech. And one of the things that came up is when we were talking about data, particularly around data scientist, and they asked the students, what does a data scientist look like to you? 92% of the students said a middle-aged white man with mad hair and a long white coat. So I'm hoping with having Daisy on, we can help break that stereotypical as well. And one of the questions is, Daisy, is what's the difference between a data scientist and a data engineer?
So I would say data scientist is more similar to an analyst in the sense that you take the data in its form and you translate it in some way. So whether you're describing the event or predictive analytics, it's more that end, whereas a data engineer will do the bit before that. So they'll be able to take the data from its source and load it in via a pipeline, which then makes it usable for the data scientist. I'm sure there's some overlap, but generally those would be the differences.
Okay, amazing. And then I got asked, which software do you use the most when working on data?
So it depends on the task. So if it's a simple data extract, then I'll use something that uses SQL. So for us in particular, we use Access, the database, to query. Whereas if it's something like a visualization, then we're more likely to use Power BI. And then if it's anything, more analytical than that in, predictive analytics or that kind of thing, then I'll use Python in Jupyter Notebook normally.
Amazing. Great. Thank you so much. So thanks for that, Daisy. Again, really insightful. Thank you so much. We're now going to move on to Tenny, who is a data engineer with Capgemini. So firstly, Tenny, if you can just give us a quick overview of your sort of journey and your career to date.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Right now, I'm a data engineer at Capgemini, and I started my career about a decade ago as a junior database developer with a software engineering company. And I usually like to say data chose me because we had a choice of software engineering, front end or back end. And, I was kind of put into back end, and that's kind of how my journey began. I've worked for a marketing agency as well. So, I've been part of marketing teams, but I've been the person pulling data, understanding the data, and helping to tell a story with the data by loading it into our databases, building the infrastructure and architecture surrounding that. And so, for example, thinking of your Sainsbury's, your Tesco's vouchers, for example, I was the one responsible for understanding who the customers were, who are they, what do they like, are they loyal, are they not, how do we get them to buy more, how do we change their behavior, things like that. And I will pull all that information using tools like SQL. Excel is my best friend. And I would, pull that information and share it with the stakeholders, with the clients, and help to promote decision making. And then, so I went from, I would say, database development to data analysis, and I really enjoyed that. And then I kind of have found my way into data engineering now, because I feel like at some point I wanted to know more about the actual pipelines. So I basically, like Daisy was saying earlier, my role is to access the data, and data comes in so many forms. It could be unstructured, it could be, dirty data. And I would pull all of this information and build the pipelines. I could use things we call APIs to, just get the data flowing through in the right format, at the right times with the right security, and make sure that all of this data is flowing through to the end user. And the end user could be, like Daisy has said earlier, the data scientist. It could be different departments within the organization, like the commercial team, the marketing team, the sales team, and also the senior leadership team as well. So I feel like I am, I do everything data. So right from getting the data to processing it and also to visualization. So that's been my journey so far.
Okay, amazing. You've mentioned a bit there about working within marketing. Now we've sort of said something that was brought up when we were speaking to Daisy is data can be seen as quite boring. You've used it within a marketing, which is seen as quite exciting and creative. How have you worked with data within a marketing industry?
Yes, so I have worked as part of a marketing agency, and we had lots of clients. So all sorts of clients from, plumbing and heating manufacturing companies to government organizations, public sector, to retail, to e-commerce, and all of this, what they all have in common is that they have data, right? And they want to use that data to do something, to make good decisions, to, sell more or whatever. And I will pull this information, and what I usually do is basically pull the data into our database, which is usually SQL, and run queries on them and perform analysis that help to make the decision. So it always depends on the requirements of the client. Like, what do they want? What is their end goal? Do they want more customers? Do they want to just improve visibility? Do they, whatever it is, based on those needs, I would basically use the data to satisfy those needs. And like I said earlier, an example would be, marketing campaigns where we want to encourage people to buy more or spend more or change the way they spend or introduce them to a new product. So things like this are quite interesting because you see the impact of your work over a time period, and you can tell pretty quickly, well, depends on the length of the campaign, how well or how successful, your campaign, like your interpretation of the data has been. So that's kind of an example. Yeah.
Thank you. And then you've done some amazing courses as well. You've done sort of Microsoft, Oracle, and you've done them through Google. How have they helped you? And a lot of them have been free qualifications. How have them helped you to grow your skills and your career within the tech world? And is there anything that you would really recommend that doing this course will 100% enhance your skills?
Yes, so I think it depends. So in my own situation, I made sure to take as many free courses as possible first to get a feel, because I feel like in this industry, it can get a bit overwhelming when there's so many courses, there's so many, like there's data science, there's data engineering, there's like, what's the difference even? So what I did in my own instances, I took free courses, and you'll be surprised as to how many free tutorials are on YouTube, Udemy as well, LinkedIn Learning, and Coursera. Those were the platforms that I went on to and just tried to practice and see what I was interested in. I tried to do data science, but I think I wasn't enjoying it as much as I'm enjoying like data engineering, for example. So that's what I did, like went on those platforms that I mentioned and played around with, those free tutorials just to see what I was interested in. One other thing I was going to mention as well is, while certifications are quite important because they give you, first of all, the skills of the subject matter, and they also help you to get that reputation and validation in the industry. I believe that a lot of people, there's a temptation to just tick those boxes and do those certifications without really grasping, what you're trying to use those certifications for. So that's why I usually encourage, like, before you go into, I want to write an exam, I want to do a Microsoft certified, developer exam, I feel like you should take some time to do some of those free courses on those platforms and understand which ones you actually are enjoying, because you also need to enjoy doing it. You need to be, ambitious about it. And then if you've got that and you have an idea of the path you want to take, then I would encourage Microsoft certifications. So whether it's developer, whether it's cloud practitioner, any of them, it's difficult to give you a specific one, but Microsoft is a very good provider that has almost everything you're looking for with regards to this field. Amazon is another one. If you're realizing,
Tenny, sorry, I'm gonna have to because we've got to go over time.
All right, cool. So
yeah, into the chat
box, I'll put
it.
Yes, I will.
One last question, and you've literally got a minute to answer because we are.
Okay, I'll be quick.
But still great. So thank you. I think it's been really valuable. So you're an advocate for women in STEM, which is great, which is why we all are here today.
Yeah.
But from your point of view, why is it important to you that women understand the opportunities that are available to them in STEM?
I think I'll quickly say two things. The first thing is there's a lot of research that shows the gender gap, right, when it comes to STEM and its benefits. Like women make up only about 28% of the workforce in STEM. And also we know that a typical STEM worker earns more than 2/3 more than those in other fields. So this is why we can see that there's a gender gap and the pay gap. So what we want and why we encourage, it's very important for women to go into STEM, because we believe that it will narrow this gender pay gap, and it will also provide equal opportunities for women to pursue their careers and gain like economic and financial, freedom and stability. And also it just brings diversity and fresh perspectives, to science and technology problems. So we really need to, get on it.
Great, amazing. Thank you so much for that. We're just gonna quickly go over to the chat.
Yeah, I think we have one question, Leanne. So can you, before you got into data, what was your first career break?
So I actually, data was the first thing. Software engineering was what I went into straight from uni, and that's why I said data chose me, because the next project I got on right after getting out of uni was a software engineering project where I was put on the data team. So that's kind of where I've been. And I started with very simple things like just write Excel, loading things into Excel and creating charts. So you can start very simple, like, and just find some projects online that you can play around with. You get like free data sets. So
and I think it's just really important to point out as well, because I think a lot of the people on the panel today have come through the apprenticeship route. Tenny, you obviously went down the university route, and a lot of people do also go down the university route. So I think it's really important to work on what route is best for you. Some people are much better academic, other people are practical learners. So it's about, for yourself, doing that network, speaking to people, finding out where it is you want to go, and then looking at what the best route for you is. So it's not just about apprenticeships. It's not just about the apprenticeships we mentioned today. There's also so many different jobs available in the tech world. And some are supported by apprenticeship. They're also supported by university as well. And I know it's been mentioned a couple of times about apprenticeships. The area the website we recommend for people to join is the National Apprenticeship Service. Most of the apprenticeships are advertised on there. So again, it's about establishing what apprenticeship you want to do. So on the screen right now is just some of the job titles available within the tech. So there's so many out there. And again, joining groups on LinkedIn for apprenticeships. Capgemini run loads of different apprenticeship programs. Go to their website if you want to have a look at what their programs are. They have entry-level roles, they have apprenticeship, they have grad schemes. There's, Bethan mentioned Pelago vacancies earlier. There's lots of different routes into tech, and it's about finding out which is the best route for yourself. So I want to thank everyone for their time today. I got a lot of valuable information out of this, so thank you so much. If there is any of the questions that we haven't mentioned today, if we haven't managed to answer, then do send us an email to hello@justit.co.uk. We will then ensure that we get answers from our panelists and send them out to you. But thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Anybody want to add anything before we finish? Penny, sorry, I felt like I cut you off a little bit because we've run short of time. We have got 1 minute. If you want to add anything.
I mean, just to say thank you for hosting this, and like everyone has said, just be confident. I think confidence is really important, because you can feel like you have imposter syndrome if you're coming from a different field, or if you're just starting out, but you can do it. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's come across today in today's session. It was on yesterday, and to be honest, every session that we've run on the Just IT Women in Tech webinars, at least one or more women say, don't be afraid, just put yourself out there, just try, go for it anyway. I think there's huge amounts of transferable skills that women have that work well within the roles within the tech industry. And I know we've touched upon some of it today, but I do think it's about just putting yourself out there, network. I think that's come out a lot today about having people around you. Anybody else want to offer one last bit of advice?
Yeah, if I can just chime in.
Come on.
So in terms of like finding the apprenticeship as well, so that's something I think it seems harder than it is. My sort of tip would just be to ask if there's a certain company that you want to work for, people that you've spotted on LinkedIn, don't hesitate to drop them a message. That's how I've got 2 of my roles now. So just ask. I know it seems so scary and the imposter syndrome will be at its max, but you know, what's the worst thing that can happen? You know, they say no and you can move on, but often they'll be really interested to speak to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else want to add anything before we wrap up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I popped my LinkedIn in the chat, and feel free to add me on there if you'd like. And you know, thanks everybody for joining the session today. It's been really great to have you on board.
And is Tenny heavily connected to different networks within Women in Tech, so I do recommend all of our panelists connecting with them. So thank you so much. I'm really, really grateful to all of our panelists. And I want to say a massive thank you for your wonderful insight. And I wish you all a great day and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks
Take
all,
care.
bye.